Again? Who keeps dumping these here?
On the next all-new episode of Housing Complex C.
I know there are some strange rumors floating around about the interns. Please pay no attention. The interns are all nice boys.
Is something the matter?
The ladle, please. Something I need to see.
Housing Complex C. Next Saturday at midnight. Next day on HBO Max. On the next all-new episode of Yashahime, Princess Half-Demon.
All right, then, let's get this over with, shall we? Windscar!
Fool! How dare you disfigure my face! You'll pay for that!
Yashahime, Princess Half-Demon. Next Saturday at 12:30.
Yeah, this might not have been the best idea.
Only Toonami on Adult Swim.
The following program may contain coarse language, suggestive dialogue, and discussion of violent imagery and sexual situations. It is intended for mature listeners who can tell the difference between facts and opinions.
It's Primal's fiery finish on this episode of the Toonami Faithful Podcast. I am your host, Sketch, and with me I have...
both colossally excited and sad, Happy Kuro Kitty.
And we have a couple of guests.
I'm LumRanmaYasha, giving my best Primal scream, roar! To celebrate the family Primal.
Bravo, bravo.
And my name is Sam, and I think I can do a little bit better.
Ooh, nicely done.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that was good. Nice. All I got in me is some coughs.
Yeah, don't. Kuro, don't do that. You're trying to save your voice.
Oh.
I shouldn't really be doing that myself, so.
Yeah.
Kuro has a little bit of a cold going on. Sorry, folks. I sound a little grady.
So, last time we talked about Primal, we covered 6 episodes of the second season, and now we are covering the final 4, which is made up of a 3-parter and the finale, which all kind of roll together because it is a continuous story.
For 4 episodes, so much happened. Wow. That was a lot.
It was so good.
So
good.
Yeah.
When I got to the end of the second part, I was like, oh, yeah, you need a 3rd episode for this.
Yeah,
I mean, no way we're wrapping this up.
The Colosseus refers to like this giant warship that they're on during the 3-parter, but it really is such a huge event because like it really opens up the world. We see so many different cultures in all these lands that they go to conquer and fight in, and it's really crazy. Like we have all like sorts of cultures based on like, you know, Babylonians and like Greeks and all that stuff, and it's like crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that connection you drew between the Colosseus, the title, the ship, and how the expansion of the world was through the storyline. That's pretty apt description, I would say.
Right. And it's crazy how we already come from season 1, where we spent all that time on just this one island, where it's like, I mean, there were so many different types of creatures on that island, so it felt like a big place. But like when you go on a world and you're like seeing, wow, there are all sorts of different civilizations and cultures here, it's that it really opens up the potential that they could like explore even more of this world than what we see. Like we really see the most of it in the second part of the 3-parter, where we just have the montage of them fighting in the different places. But it is really, really cool to see all these different inspiration being brought into the show.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that can be attributed to like real world history and all that. They probably did take a look at like old history books and kind of went through all that to kind of make it seem a little bit more realistic than what it would be like with a fictional series. I mean, it's still fiction, right? But the way that everything kind of flows together with its story from the first part to the finale is that there's a lot that they want to tell you in that short amount of time. And I think that what they were trying to do, they succeeded gratefully, because the range of emotions that I felt watching all 3 parts back to back over the course of 3 weeks is probably the most satisfying television I've ever watched.
Oh, yeah.
And just engaging, falling, edge of your seat, like suspension tension of like, oh man, I hope that these characters I like will be okay. And like getting, like I was really animated watching these episodes. Like I got really upset, really invested. There was a point in the second episode where I got so worked up, like V-Lord could hear me screaming from downstairs, and he like called me to like be like, is everything okay? And I like saying, no, I'm just really upset about what's happening in Primal right now. And he was like, oh, I thought with how you were acting, someone had broken into the house.
But there is something
I
wrong.
was that mad.
And
I was so mad at the Queen in the second
Gosh,
episode.
yeah. I had some foul words for her several times while I was watching this.
Look, we all appreciate a bad bitch around here, but she is too bad a bitch.
Her cruelty was just so enraging. Like the scene I'm talking about is like when they land at the village, it is just like welcoming them. It's like just completely peacefully, and they are like offering them all this food, and they're like just completely nonviolent and completely like, hey, you can take this stuff. We're offering it to you. Just we are just trying to establish a relationship of peace. But the Queen is like, she walks back in her boat and she tells Kamau basically to go and kill all these people. Yeah, it's just the cruelty of it.
That was
like,
heartbreaking.
Like Kamau like brings the food to her and it's like, hey, they're giving this to us. Why do we need to do this? And she's like, no, go do it. And then you just see Kamau just try to like numb himself as he has to go and commit just this massacre on just these like peaceful, non-violent villagers and just slaughter them. It's just heartbreaking and just so enraging.
Smashed a lot of tomatoes and also bones.
Just did it for the sake of cruelty, and it's just so. Yeah, I just really, really grew to despise that character, which makes her such an effective villain.
Yeah,
I think that we get invested because. Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
No, she makes a great foil. She's a great villain for the series, and I think that's like the series never really had an overarching antagonist. I guess you could always say like in the first season it was survival and the nature of it all, but season 2 felt more like, hey, we're the enemy here are the Vikings or this Queen over here, and the Queen kind of felt more like the threat compared to the Vikings.
Until the final episode. I feel like overarching, I guess you would say the Chieftain was like the villain, but like for like kind of the penultimate like arc, it was definitely this Queen. She felt like a bigger threat in the overall world. Like the Vikings, they were conquering, enslaving other people, but the scale to which the Queen was doing that was just on a whole other level, where she was just massacring entire civilizations around the world. So it's like I think they really took down a huge colonial power in destroying the Queen's empire.
Yeah, those Vikings were kind of small time in comparison.
Yeah, they had like
I would like to make a point about storytelling here. And first of all, none of these things historically would have ever existed at the same time. But you're able to suspend your disbelief because of the way the story is told. You're just so invested in the action and the outcome of the characters that you're able to just put that aside and recognize, like, okay, we know this isn't real, but this is a world we're willing to dive into. And second, I think that the impact and the investment you have in the latter part of season 2 with Fang and her eggs and her young and following these characters together and this new family they formed is so much more heavy than it would be if we hadn't seen season 1, because in season 1 we see the characters bond and we see how they form this team, and so we care because we watched them all through their previous struggles. So this part of the story could only have been told after all of their adventures from season 1 and even the first part of season 2, and that buildup of impact, that buildup of you're invested in the characters is like just really speaks to how brilliant Tartakovsky put together this story and to make you care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100% to that, and he did that without saying a single line, no dialogue.
Yeah,
Episode season 2, but discounting that, he told this entire story with just grunts, screams, and just music. And that attention to detail kind of tells how brilliant of a storyteller he is. He can basically tell this story from Act 1 to Act 3 without saying a single line. He can show you emotions and characters just by the body language of it all, just by the way that they act, by the way that they grunt, by the way that they interact with each other on screen. It's just brilliant all the way through. And through the end of season 2, it continued to be that way. And even if there is dialogue in the show, it is pretty much unintelligible if you know only English. Yeah, but it's just brilliant from my point of view. For somebody who loves animation, is just the fact that Genndy Tartakovsky was able to just tell this story without saying a single line. So you can just tell this tale with these 2 drawings, and those 2 drawings can have such a wide range of emotions that can make you feel a lot more than what you would typically feel normally, and that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it is a true masterpiece of visual storytelling, and it shows like his eagerness and like willingness to want to like experiment and push animation as a medium. I think that's what he really wanted to do with the show. I mean, in his Entertainment Weekly interview that I recently put out, he's basically saying just that as like the show was like a way for him to explore him just kind of this type of raw type of action through Spear that he had not been able to do before, because Spear has no technique. He is just like completely fighting wild, and what kind of crazy fights could he come up with that he could come up with like these creatures, and then
kind of choreography to Samurai Jack.
And that's
Samurai Jack was all about like Kurosawa samurai movies, and then other action shows, and Conan the Barbarian.
Mm-hmm.
Primal is very much Conan the Barbarian and Pulp Fiction type stories all the way through.
Absolutely.
Just the way that it's directed, and it's like the direction is beautiful. It's wonderful. The action in every episode that it has is just masterfully done. You can definitely tell that Genndy Tartakovsky, over his 20 years in the animation industry, he has perfected his method of storytelling. And that's just incredible to see, because when you start from like maybe his early days when he's made Dexter's Lab, you saw some of that, but it has evolved so much that he is drastically a very different person than when he first started out.
Yeah.
He introduced this alternative point of view in this season 2 that I wasn't sure that I wanted to see, but it actually was integrated pretty seamlessly into the story. Like, you see the other slave, I think his name is Amal.
Kamal, I think, is the name of the credits.
Yeah. Okay. So the other slave, and then the even the Viking perspective, like, you're given a sort of sympathetic look into, it's not so straightforward who's the enemy, and yet they are very clearly Fang and Spear's enemy at varying points. but you get to see from their perspective what happens to them. And I did end up actually enjoying that. It made for an interesting twist that like just getting right down to it, that every creature that he's introduced is following their own primal urge to survive, to seek vengeance, to protect their loved ones, and all this other stuff. And so that it isn't just affected by our main protagonist, but it affects all the characters. And I ended up enjoying that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I really got invested in Kamau. I mean, he was in the same boat as Bjorn Fang, but really, in terms of the situation, because Kamau also was basically being forced to fight because his child was basically being kept hostage, and her life was being placed under threat if he did not comply with the Queen's wishes.
Queen Eva's her go-to move is to
kidnap children. Yeah.
Kidnap children as hostages.
Yeah, basically. So what I appreciate, like Kamau was like kind of afraid to kind of fight back against the Queen because he was afraid of what would happen to his daughter. And ultimately, though, he just did form a sense of respect and camaraderie with Spear and Fang, like fighting together in those battles, and then also seeing them like kind of rise up in rebellion, try and fight back against the Queen, and ultimately couldn't bring himself to keep going along under her and execute Fang, who like he saw very much as being in the same position as himself, as someone captured, forced to fight to protect her children. And so it was a great moment when he like swings the axe down but frees Fang and then swings it towards the Queen and then basically rescues his daughter and fights Fang.
All hell breaks loose.
The most satisfying moment is like when he gets down to like kind of the bottom of the ship and sees his people like who have been forced to row this boat this whole time, and then he's fighting off all the guards, and he inspires his people to also start fighting back, and they fight back and they basically take over the ship. And it's just a really satisfying moment of just like these characters who have been oppressed rising together in solidarity just through inspiring example of someone like standing up to these oppressors and winning back their freedom together. That was such a really satisfying thing, and I think that it was really a satisfying arc for that character, and also the relationship between Spear Fang and him and how they inspired him and he inspired others.
It's a good segue sketch into recap time, I think, don't you?
Oh, jeez. It almost feels kind of weird to do together. But I do want to mention, with regards to rising up at the end there, and how that's happening alongside the moment where Spear and Fang and Mira and the babies are trying to get away from the boat.
Yeah, the tension there.
Should have swam another direction.
Right. I mean, that's what I was thinking. Is like maybe it's because of the current. Like they were being pulled in that direction.
Pulling them in, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
At the beginning of episode 3, because episode 2 ends with Kamau looking at them getting captured, or they're about to get captured.
Yeah, the Queen gives him like a look of like, "Hey, you're gonna have to help us with this." And
then episode 3 opens up, and you see the boat, and you see the rowing.
Mm-hmm.
They're spending all this time on the rowing, and I thought, it's kind of weird that they're spending all this time on the rowing, don't you think? But then, when you get to the point where you see the connection with the rowing, it's like, oh, okay, I understand why they did that now. I understand the point of that scene.
It is such great tension building and just ways to kind of like establish like this important situation that will come into the play at the end of the episode. So, such great storytelling.
So, the recap, as it were.
Let's do it.
In part one, the chieftain succumbs to his wounds, and you have this moment where he's seeing the Valkyries come from the sky, and then, psych! You're getting dragged down to make a deal with a demonic entity so that you can try to get your son's soul back.
Muspelheim, the Viking world of fire.
Yeah.
And I did not just get that from playing Gods of War. Thank you very much. I promise.
The chieftain more or less agrees to be transformed into a monster of judgment.
Yeah.
A fiery man, quite large.
Yeah. It's this big fire demon creature. One thing I was trying to read in that scene is like why the basically god of revenge or whatever wanted him to track down Spear and Fang. I mean, we kind of assume it's either like the devil or like this manifestation of the god of his revenge. Like, is this the Vidar that they talk about?
So much?
Right, and like he also, because he doesn't finish the job technically, because he shows him Spear and Fang, but ultimately the chieftain only gets Spear. So like, why did he drag him back prematurely when he still probably could have fought and taken Fang out too? But
so my understanding
I also feel like, but I'm sorry, go
on.
There's also the moment though where you're showing him his son like in the lava, like underneath him, and I was thinking, well, is he forcing the chieftain to like fight and get revenge, like in exchange for relinquishing his son's soul? Because like his son is trapped here in like this land of fire in hell, basically, and so in exchange for like his soul and then him going out and killing Spear, is he going to free his son?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It makes it so you can interpret it however you want, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, the mythology of well, in this case, what they're choosing to put into the storyline of these characters is that having a good death and having a warrior's way is essential to their spirituality. And there's that part in episode 6, right before they attack, when Fang is just about to lay her eggs, where the character is sitting and staring into the fire, and his hatred manifests itself through this summoning this demon up, and I think that's what alerts him to it. So when he's at the verge of being taken by the Valkyries to this eternal, like, peace for, okay, you've been a good warrior, you fought a good life, because his own vengeance and hatred had summoned this demon previously. It's like, well, you have unfinished business. No, that's not going to cut it. You gotta continue with this mission. And so, and then using this, taking his son's his soul hostage to force him into this servitude. That was the impression I got.
Yeah, but why did the son's soul end up down there to begin with? Because you would think it would have been brought to Valhalla.
Right.
See, this is why you gotta be careful with vengeance, man. There is always a price. There's always a price. You don't know what you're inviting into yourself by like summoning that level of like vitriol into your life. That said, I do love a good revenge story, so let's keep up with that revenge stuff, yeah.
We're getting a revenge story here.
Yeah.
The one that is a slow burn, as it were.
Yeah, we basically see him walking in the next few parts till the finale.
Yeah.
Well,
sure. This one scene is literally all we get of him in this episode. And then as the episodes progress, we see him.
We have one scene of him in every episode.
Rise up to the surface, scorch the earth underneath him, and start walking onto the water.
Yeah, the third episode is him like walking on the sea, following the trail of Spear and Fang's boat.
Kamal's like, oh shit, please don't let this be my problem.
Yeah, I was so worried at the end of the third episode that he was walking towards Kamal's boat. And I was like, no, please just let these people live in peace. But no, I think thankfully he was walking in a different direction. He's walking forward. So
he was
they were going different directions.
Different objective.
Different target, yeah.
Yeah. So when we last left Spear, Fang, and Mira and the eggs, they had gotten onto a boat. They had fought off the chieftain and his son one last time. And they're now out on a boat. And things seem to be going well until a gigantic, colossal, if you will, ship sends a fairly decent-sized ship out with a whole bunch of warriors, including Kabal, this really, really big, tough guy who is a match to take on Spear and Fang. And, you know, in the heat of the battle, you'd probably be thinking, oh, I hope nothing happens to those eggs.
Oh my god.
And, yeah, well, inevitably, even though Fang is trying her best to protect her babies, she gets punched in the face when she had 3 of them in her mouth, and one of the eggs flies out of her mouth and...
Crack.
That was brutal.
Oh, I gasped. I was shook when seeing that moment. And just seeing like the...
It was
like
awful.
the fetus coming out of the egg. It's just the blood and yolk. And
I was so angry. I was so upset. So
yeah.
I legit.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It was wretching. But things get worse from there because they end up losing the eggs when they are captured by this Queen Ima, and she takes them as hostage and forces them to go along with her to her Colosseus, this gigantic boat. And they are then forced to work for her the same way that Kambao is, in that they are basically slave mercenaries. The task of aiding in any battle that she chooses to have, and she chooses to have a lot of battles. Starting in Babylonia, where she initially lets the king live, only to later kill him after dancing very seductively.
Yeah.
At least she took the kitty.
Yeah, she did take the kitty.
It was kind of a heartbreaking moment where she took the kitty from like that king and like and then she ordered her guards to like stab him as violently through the chest.
She likes babies. Right?
Hey.
Yeah, and a lot of time
She survived, and that was important. Well, I mean,
I don't know if we know.
I don't know if it survived later, but it survived.
We kind of don't see it after the second.
It survived long enough to get big.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. A lot of time must have passed for that like little leopard to grow up.
It just takes a few months for kitties to grow up. So yeah.
Yeah, still that's a lot of time.
Which makes it worse because if you think about like a few months of Fang being separated from her eggs and then them all having to be forced to fight. Yeah, and then Kamal separated from his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised the eggs survived, like not just on their own, like not being like warmed up.
I don't buy it.
Yeah.
They're not being incubated properly.
No, so that was kind of. I mean, I'm glad that they were hatched safely, but it was like
plot armor. That's plot armor. Well, that was her only
too bad
leverage.
The third one didn't have it.
Yeah. It was her only leverage. If she hadn't somehow protected those eggs, Fang and Spear would have been like, fuck you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They would have been like, fuck you, bitch. I don't even care anymore. We're killing everything.
Because, like, just the fact that her eggs were in danger was the only reason that kept Fang in that cage. Because we saw later, she broke out of that easily. She just slammed against it and walked out. So it's like, yeah.
The eggs were stupid guard.
Yeah. She ate a lot of guards during her time there. Like, every time they tried to feed her. Eventually, the point where they just, like, threw the stakes in the cell without opening the door.
I actually thought part 2 was the hardest for me to watch.
Yeah.
That was a really difficult episode.
One.
Yeah, for the theme you mentioned before.
They made an interesting choice here. you could definitely say it was cutting corners, but at the same time, it was a thematic choice, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
They literally reused the same movements and animation for multiple areas just to show how mundane the fighting was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
to save adults from adults.
There was some heavy symbolism of that after battle sequence where they're all laden with arrows and they soak in the pool and it just turns red with blood.
Yeah.
It really codifies that sense of defeatism that their current enslaved situation has put them in.
Yeah. I mean, the purpose of like throwing them in front lines of these battles is also to wear them down into just being complacent with the situation too. So
this clearly happened to Kamau.
Yeah, Kamau's like basically given up.
It was a rough sequence. It was a rough sequence.
But Spears is just biding his time. Yeah, he doesn't give up. He takes his opportunity when he sees it to get out there.
Spears just trying to convince him, hey, this is the moment. And Kamau's like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Fang's raring to go. It was like, no, I can't sneak around with a dinosaur, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I can't be sneaking with a dinosaur. We've established this. But he is sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
And he manages to get the eggs, get Mira, and this is when the Babylonian king gets dead.
Yeah, because he smirked when Mira didn't dance for the queen. I like that. So she did this elaborate, provocative dance to like get the king to lower his guard before like just kicking him out like the platform so he'd fall to his death. And that's also just a power move to show Mira, you don't listen to me, you insult me, that's gonna happen to you. So
also,
really just flaunting your power. Yeah. Also showing her, this is what you gotta do. You do this.
And this is the first moment when she's fighting Spear where you're like, oh crap, she's actually a really good fighter. This is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No wonder all these guys listen to what she wants.
Yeah.
She is no pushover.
Her hubris got the best of her by the final episode of that.
She's no match for Kamau and his people. They're just too big and they're really sturdy. So like her arrows, her little blades, they aren't doing much to them. So really all they needed to do is like pick her up and throw her off the boat.
I feel like arrows don't do any damage in this show.
I mean,
like
Kamau gets like a hit by an arrow by Mira in the neck in the first part, and like he just takes it out, and it's like his body, he is just super sturdy. His body is just insanely resilient, even more so than Spear Fang,
unit.
Who take like so much abuse. But like, yeah, this guy, he's got a body of steel,
thick skin guy.
Yeah.
But as we see at the start of part 3, he is also a very gentle man, or at least he was. Because his tribe was very peaceful, agriculture based.
Gentle giants.
His daughter was about to kill a spider. He's like, no. We don't have to harm her. Just
we don't do that here.
Let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And then their village gets invaded, and he's forced to fight for the queen from then on. Just disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was like the moment in his like head where he just was like, enough's enough. That axe goes down, he frees Fang, and he throws the axe directly at the queen, and that was just like so sad to see. Just like that.
Was.
Three episodes.
Just the tension of that scene, yeah.
Like, what's going to happen to these characters? And they just go full on, you know what, fuck it, mutiny. Mutiny on the ship, let's go!
It was also awesome, like, the moment, like, the queen, she grabs his child, like, right after, but then he's, like, kind of looks in a panic, but he realizes, I'll just, like, step on the platform, and it's just, like, sends the queen flying, and he just grabs his daughter and just runs.
She was vicious. She was taking no prisoners. Like, she was ready to spear through Fang, and then when the arrow went into the hatchling, I was just like, oh no, fuck. Like, you can't hurt those babies. They've been through a lot to get here. You can't hurt the babies.
Its painful wails were so distressing and heartbreaking. It's like, oh no. Yeah. It seemed to get over it pretty fast after they jumped off the boat, but still.
Also, like how quickly Mira and Spear rally to protect her young. Like, they're so invested in protecting this family unit. They care, and they're ready to do what it takes to keep the hatchlings safe. I love that so much because, like, I care too. I mean, they're little killers, but there are little killers. We got to protect them. We got to make sure they're okay.
Yeah, they might have stayed the fight if the babies weren't in danger, but, like, seeing that, oh no, these are vulnerable, we can't, like, stay here. That's just going to keep them at risk. That's when they decide, okay, we got to get off this boat.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Not before Spear literally yanks his chain that is chained to the
yeah, it was so great.
It's very hurtful.
Like using it as a weapon.
Stone block, and he just throws it around and just bashes. Has a lot of guards in with it.
That's my favorite innovative weaponry of his. I think of all the different creative weapons he uses. That one is definitely in the top 2.
Yeah.
It just kind of shows how strong Spear is as a character, that he's able to just lift up this just heavy ass cylinder block that's holding him down and just swing it around like it's fucking nothing. And it's just amazing to see.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Now they're in the water and they're getting awfully close to the big boat as the current's pulling them in.
The oars.
As luck may have it, Kamau has entered lower into the boat and has found his brethren all rowing the boats and starts beating up the guards in that room. And that's when the uprising begins. Just in time so that our other characters do not get crushed under the boat.
Yeah, that allows them to invade the side boat that is also like rowing alongside the main boat, and then just Spear goes in there and just kills all the guards and then frees all the enslaved people in there. And I think they just run out of the boat in horror because they don't know what Spear is all about. I don't know where they're going, like swimming in the ocean, but they're free now. And then Spear, Fang, and Mira, they got a new boat for themselves, which is great.
Yeah, they got their own little boat, and soon they'll get some provisions. The queen is finally put out of our misery.
Yeah.
Well, she was so great as a villain. You really disliked her completely. And she was ruthless. Completely ruthless. Not just in holding the young hostage, but also like how she managed to keep everybody in her thrall, and how she was just brutal with making war and killing. Like it seemed really senseless. You didn't get any sense of what the purpose was other than just sheer domination. So she
didn't want kingdom.
Just pure power and
wanted carnage.
And it was very karmic that she died in the same way she killed another person, like by being thrown off a very high place.
Ain't nobody was sad about that.
No, it's like pretty brutal, like seeing her like just crushed body when it crashes into Spear and Fang's boat. And we see
I definitely threw up a finger gesture to go with that one.
Yeah. It's all mangled. We see that like her leg broken fall. It's like
and the kids are like, dinner?
Kids eat free.
Yeah. Another satisfying moment.
That was really entertaining. And earlier when Fang eats something, and then the babies are like, "Oh!"
They followed suit. They learned. Guards.
Just not feeling sad about that loss of human life. What can I say?
No,
they're colonial conquerors who enslaved people, so no sympathies.
Yeah. So right about now, they're Spear, Mira, Fang, and the babies are off on their smaller boats, furthering their journey, and in the distance around the Coliseus, we see the chieftain in his fiery monster form in the distance.
He's walking on water.
Yeah.
Like, he is like
How
steaming
does that work?
water.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't he just like fall into the water and not be on fire anymore?
This is demonic powers, I guess, allows him to walk on water.
I guess. Like, I'm sorry, I can't transport you to where they are. You're gonna have to walk there yourself. Whatever. I could use the exercise. So it brings us to the final episode, Echoes of Eternity, which opens up with Spear dreaming of his childhood when his father was killed by some beasts, and he had to become the new elder.
Saber-tooted cats. I'm sure you were very happy to see that, Kuro.
I mean, the cats are just trying to live too, yo. I get it.
Yeah.
Everybody has their motivation. I couldn't really not root for them, but I get it.
Yeah.
Like that new movie Beast, I'm like, it's a lion.
Mhm.
What do you want me to do, people? Come on.
Right. Lion or Idris Elba.
Sorry,
I know
Idris
who I
Elba.
sympathize with. Yeah. But I think it was super interesting, like, seeing that Spear among his group seemingly had more softer features than the rest of his pack. Like, like his father had like kind of these like black red eyes, and he looked more of a traditional Neanderthal.
Yeah, he had closer to more like prime, like and I don't want to say ape-like, but maybe a bit more ape-like features.
Yeah.
And then you see his son has closer to more
modern
human-like
human features. Like he's more of a step forward between Neanderthal and Homo sapien.
Which is interestingly juxtaposed with the fact that Spear now seems to be like the oldest living Neanderthal.
Yeah,
It seems like.
It seems to imply that he's like the last of his kind.
I think so.
Well, here an interesting fact, aside from the fiction, is that there is evidence that there was interbreeding between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, and I think I don't know what the statistic is. It's either 2% of all humans or 2% of all DNA has Neanderthal in it. I can't remember which it is, but there is some evidence of that, and it is kind of fascinating to think where that interbreeding might have happened in history millions of years ago.
We certainly see an example in the show at the end of the series here.
Yeah.
We do. Well, we'll get to that. I would have liked to see what his mother looked like, because who knows? Maybe she was from a different tribe.
Yeah,
that's probably pretty likely, actually. So at a very young age, he proves he's quite strong, able to smash skulls in with a rock. Considering all of that, why'd he go with Spear? He could have gone with rock. But
rock.
Mira wakes Spear, and they have arrived at last at her homeland, which I'm sure a lot of us were thinking that was the ending destination of this journey. And sure enough, that is it. However, at least initially, it looks like they're all gone. All of her tribe has been wiped out. And she's very mournful for that for a moment. Then realizes, well, this is still a nice place to be, so
I think that coming back to the place that he was kidnapped also brought back that traumatic memory of when she was taken. Seeing that tree and then remembering that night and just the horror of it. Yeah.
That was hard to watch.
Yeah, and it's like her one friend made it out of that night, but for those other two, I don't think we see them again, so they were probably slaughtered. Like her former lover, especially, And then it was the horrifying moment also, like when she's trying to fight back, she was like,
that had a former lover that was slaughtered.
Yeah. And then it was just a horrifying moment, just like when she was being choked, and then we like had lightning flash cut to like her being branded with the like scorpion sun symbol on her back of her head, and yeah, just a horrifying traumatic experience. That now she's at least back home, so yeah, it's just a sweet moment of like Spear comforting Mira.
Yeah.
Then the next day they go on a little exploration, and Fang finds some woman bathing in a cave.
Yeah, this is clearly not for children. You have figured that out by now.
Fang, she might be a snack, a hot dish, if you will, but don't eat her.
That's good.
Turns out that this woman was one of Mira's friends, so they were very happy to reunite. And Mira was like, "Please, Fang, my friend, Fang, my friend, please."
Yeah.
No Edie, no fighty.
Oh, it was like just freaked out by Fang, and then also gets freaked out when Spear comes in holding her babies.
Yeah.
Which I think was a cute scene before Fang ventured out of the cave. She like kind of nuzzles her kids with Spear. She just trusts.
Oh, I love it.
Her kids with
Spear.
It's so
cute.
There was a cuter scene. There was also a cute scene early in the episode where like the babies were like trying to get out of the boat, and like one of the babies like kept falling into the
little boy's
ocean.
Really dumb. He's a dumb boy, but he's so cute. He's
like, nope.
Yeah.
And I love it when they use cat-like imagery when they imitate the dinosaurs. That they animate dinosaurs like with like a lot of cat-like features, and that where she's grabbing her young out of the water, like that's such a cat-like thing to do. I loved it so much. Oh my gosh, it was so cute. It was so cute. I needed more of those.
Yeah. So Mira then Mira's friend takes him to where the village is now, and naturally the villagers are very frightened at the Neanderthal, the baby dinosaurs, and especially the full-grown dinosaur. But they only have a moment of fight or flight before Mira recognizes the village elder, or rather the village elder recognizes Mira, and they're able to conversation, explain the situation,
friends,
and then it's party time.
Yeah.
They have a party, a celebration that Mira has returned. And at one point, they're showing reference to their moon god, and Spear's kind of like, I don't get this. And then kind of wanders off on his own.
He goes where his people are.
Yeah.
He stays his little family. He goes back to his dinos, his dino family.
So Mira invites them into their own rock hut of sorts, which Spear gets into, and he sees there's like some pillows on the ground. He's like, all right, this wall seems nice and sturdy. I'll lay up against.
I was used to sleeping just like kind of curled up against the wall.
And Fang's like, oh, this is where we're staying? Smash.
I love that.
Now there's a dino door.
Yeah.
She's gonna
he
go
sleeps
where
on the
he
sides
goes.
with the pillows.
Oh, okay then.
It's a total cat thing. See, but she's gonna go where he goes. That's the best part. She's like, "This is your home," and Fang's like, "Okay, this is our home." And the babies are like, "Okay." I loved it. Oh my gosh.
You can tell that Spear feels out of his element. He feels alienated by this new situation, and he's not really sure what to do.
Yeah,
He
he's
does
lonely.
something to express himself. He wanted to leave some kind of proof that he lived. So he makes a cave drawing telling his whole story, which is beautiful and poetic.
It is.
He makes it on mud and blood.
Yeah.
Which you can see the scratches on his hands, and when Mira goes to check in on him, and then
remember, it really harkens back to what was it, the first or second episode of season 1, where they show the cave with all the handprints and just that need for living things to express themselves in some artistic way. Mm-hmm. I think that it really kind of emphasizes how lonely he must have felt and how this journey has affected him, that he felt the need to express himself this way. And I thought that was a nice touch. Touch for the finale of the series.
Just very telling that he, at the end of the story, he draws himself standing alone. Mira and Fang and her kids are all standing together, next to her village, but Spear is standing quite a bit away from them. So it kind of communicates the sense that he's still feeling alone, that he's still not really found his place, which is really sad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Mira looks at these drawings and is filled with so much emotion. You can really feel like she's understanding his pain.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, apparently somebody didn't get the memo that there's a dinosaur in town. Who forgot to tell that guy?
I think it's the same person, Amara, her friend, who's grieving at the sight of Fang again. Coming out.
No, that was a guy. That was a guy.
Okay.
I even thought they might have been voiced by Phil Lamar, because it kind of sounded like it, but I don't think it actually.
No, it might have been.
But yeah. So, but then there's something to really be afraid of. As coming in the distance, the fiery chieftain has finally arrived to bring their fiery vengeance.
Yeah. How do you defeat a fire monster? That wasn't in the Primal handbook.
Is that you also get yourself set on fire and then just throw yourself off a cliff with him.
Oh, that was brutal.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the way Gendy describes his reasoning here in that interview he did with, I think, Entertainment Weekly, he's Spear and Fang have fought so many enemies that are just ridiculously powerful, but you just can't imagine a scenario where Spear goes up against this kind of situation and comes out unscathed. It's just not, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's not just a creature, it's something beyond man, so it didn't feel right if they beat them like they beat everything else.
Yeah, it would be impossible for Spear to come out of that unscathed. It just would have been...
I have the same sense that this was way more powerful than what anything they'd had encountered before.
Yeah.
And there wasn't this, even though they had established their prowess and their teamwork as warriors, it was just not enough to overcome this without some kind of sacrifice.
There's literally nothing they could do to hurt this thing.
Yep. And from an Entertainment Weekly article that Sketch brought up, it said if Gendy were to kill off Spear, or compared to Fang, he would probably get a lot of hate for killing off Fang.
Yeah, he'd get in a lot of trouble for killing Fang.
Yeah, you get way more.
He let Fang live.
Mm-hmm.
Spear had to go out in a blaze of glory.
Literally,
yeah.
Quite literally. So, and this is the most fucking metal thing in this entire show. Once the chieftain has killed Spear, a hand rises out from the ground, he returns to his normal form, and screaming as he goes is pulled back down.
Yeah.
And it happens in an instant.
So fucking...
The dark.
Revenge, now come back to hell.
Yep, you did your job now. Your soul is mine for eternity.
You know, I felt like we were kind of leading up to this moment because you see that even that when Spear is doing that artwork and when he's watching the dancing, when he's watching the other characters, when he's watching the dinosaur family, like he is in a sense where he feels a part. And I think that this sacrifice was just a natural next step for his character because he didn't feel like there was a place for him in this world, and he wanted to protect the things that he loved, and so he did what he needed to do to make that happen. And I felt like even though it was really hard and it was awful, and I love Spear as a character, it definitely made sense as part of the narrative for him to make the sacrifice to save Fang, especially.
Yeah, I mean, they draw a parallel with him protecting his tribe at the beginning of the episode to him, like, fighting the chieftain here. It's like protecting, you know, Mira's village, he's protecting Fang, you know, all his life, like, Spear has kind of fought to protect the people he cares about.
Been a protector.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He dies a protector.
Yeah.
But not before he makes a little spearette.
Yeah.
Which I was like questioning all the way through that. I was like, how did she get it up?
Yeah, I can't imagine it'd be pleasurable when your entire body is burned.
Hey, you never know. I mean, if you're gonna go out in a way, I feel
maybe
like that's the way to go out.
He
and it only takes once
with
to
a
make
bang.
Yeah. He does go out with a bang in that way. That is a funny. But you know, the first time I watched the scene, I didn't know how comfortable I was with it because it's like Mira, like, you know, gets on top of him and starts grinding against him, and I didn't know like how cognizant is Spear in this moment, like how much is he like really conscious. But then rewatching it again, I can see in his eyes that no, he's understanding what's going on, that
he says her name.
This is a mutual act of love, so
yeah,
I'm more comfortable with it, but it's like still a bold thing for Gendy to pull, to have them have sex when he's slowing dying from burns.
That Gendy Dartakovsky, he's such a feminist.
Well,
I mean, he has Mira on top, so.
Yeah,
they were gonna mate. I kind of saw that coming. I just didn't know how it was gonna be handled. So
romantic tension between them for the season. So like you got a sense of it. But
I think there was tenderness and love, and
yeah, it was an act of love.
They grew to care for each other.
Absolutely.
I did about Spear at the end of the series because they did so much. He did so much for Mira in that entire second season. He went out of his way to travel thousands of miles, months, probably even years, just to protect Mira and her people. It's just is a really great way to end that whole arc and storyline for Spear from the beginning of season 1, when his family is just destroyed by a bunch of dinosaurs, to the finale of season 2, where he gives life again to a child. He's
made a new family, and his family's living on past him. His story is living on past him.
And there's a legacy. It's his legacy of family. You see them all living together, the 3 dinos and little Spearette, as I call her.
Yeah, it's another passing the torch moment, much like how, you know, his father, you know, passed away and then left him behind to continue to protect the people they cared about. You know, now we see in that flash forward that, you know, Spear's daughter will now take up that role too. So I think that's a good parallel to make there as well.
I feel a message here is that Mira acknowledged that Spear wanted to leave proof that he lived.
Yeah.
And to honor that wish, she did the one thing she thought could make sure that his legacy lived on.
Yeah. progeny is, I mean, that is the ultimate form of legacy. And it is, and you know, when you put it that way, it's kind of beautiful. It
is beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, leaving behind offspring, children, is also leaving behind someone who can continue to tell your story.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things that really struck me as I made my way through this series is that the primal theory, as they kind of put it in episode 5, it's really depicted in varying ways. I mean, it's not just the cycle of survival and violence in each scenario, but also the primal need for companionship, the primal need to protect one's young and to protect one's loved ones. And you see, for example, that Spear will go to any length to protect Fang and her eggs, and she'll do the same for him. And then that grows to having Mira go to any length. So the different ways in which the primal urge manifests in all these living creatures, I think that is really well demonstrated in this season and in the overall series, for going past just the violence and past the survival.
This season really, literally had it all.
Yeah.
When we got to that last moment and it became clear to me what she was doing, I was like, Genndy Tartakovsky, you madman.
He can get away with anything, man.
You horny, dirty boy.
How do you keep pushing the art form of animation so incredibly? How do you keep pulling it off, man?
You don't miss. You just don't fucking.
He just don't miss. You don't. Do not miss. And I do want to, Genndy is a huge part of this project, but he's not the only person that made it what it is. They have writer Derek Bachman, who worked on Symbionic Titan and Foster's Home and Samurai Jack. They have David Krentz, who is a paleo artist, the character designer, animator, storyboard artist for a lot of dinosaur-related things. So he was an excellent contributor to this, getting just these fantastic creature designs. And he was also a storyboard artist on it. And there were certainly plenty of other people. Like everything about this production is so good.
LaPlante voice acting. Yeah. LaPlante voice acting. The different languages they spoke, I wasn't clear if those were made up or those were based on real languages, but that was a really nice touch. That was a nice detail.
I think a lot of them.
Yeah, I believe from what I've seen,
Mira speaks Arabic, I think.
Yeah, it's based on some real languages across the world. Like I think with the Vikings, they were talking Nordic, I believe.
Because I mean, for some of these cultures, we don't actually know what their language sounded like. We only have approximations based off of there's a whole study devoted to this. So there was some creativity involved, and I think again that's just a really nice detail to make, like you're essentially building up a whole culture in just a few scenes, and we get a sense of that, and that was really, really clever. I like that. Like this was a massive scale production, and it was so short. It was so short, but it was so memorable and impactful. I want to actually jump back to something that Sam said that I really liked about the sound. About how they don't really speak and they don't speak in the series. Even though Tartakovsky introduced sound into the very end of the first season and into the second season where they're speaking, he still finds ways to perpetuate that silent narrative. You see the expressions of pain and joy and confusion, like that scene where Mira and Spear are being sneaky and trying to move Fang's eggs onto the boat. It's a little comical, but also you get what they're doing. Or the desperation that they express when they're trying to protect each other and protect the eggs. The real weight that the slavery has on them as they're fighting. It just all comes together perfectly through the expressive movements, the varying sounds, and their faces. So, I was afraid. I was like, oh, don't change it by adding speaking parts. But it didn't change it. it was there, but it didn't take over. It was still a lot of silent narrative, and I loved that part of it.
Shout out to I think it's Tyler Bates who did the soundtrack to Primal. I'd have to look it up, but
the music, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the music.
And
what a great score.
There's another person involved.
Joanne Higginbottom.
Yeah. Shout out to them because they did an amazing job on the series.
Yeah, you can listen to the soundtrack on YouTube officially. So
it's also on Spotify. But yeah, it's just like I think like it's brilliant how those two composers kind of came together, and Gendy gave them the direction, like, here's what I want the mood to be like, here's how I want it to sound, here's all the little tiny details that even like if you pick it out from a crowd, only like those who are most observant will probably know it. And that's the type of detail that I admire the most with any creative, whoever makes any show, is that you take the tiniest detail and you just put it in there just because you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. I feel like we're all on the Primal fan club. I would say that's a positive, right? All four of us are in the Primal fan club.
I want more. Give me more.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the possibility of more. It does seem like it's potentially going to get more. And Gendy has talked about how he doesn't really want to continue this story with Mira's family, Spear's daughter, but he could be convinced to do so. And I would be interested in seeing that, but I would also be interested in seeing where else this anthology could go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the theme can be ongoing if he does, as we read, decide to go through with an anthology. It doesn't have to follow these characters. I think we would have to have some level of investment, either that or it would just be him using different levels of expression and animation to portray the primal theory that's been kind of the overarching theme. So I'd be curious to know what direction he'd want to take this. Like Gendy's really good at surprising us. I think like he did with Jack, where a lot of early Jack was anthology and episodic, and then it became overarching in certain aspects. So how can he go from overarching to anthology and still keep fans interested? That I'm curious to see that. But I would see anything. As I said before, God, he could like animate like black and white stills and I would still fucking watch it. I would watch anything he did at this stage. He is just so growing in talent and skill and just always giving me good stuff. So that's my take.
I kind of put it out onto Twitter, but if he continues to do Primal, and he does like a whole reset on the world and everything and new characters, I kind of want him to go into like a sci-fi thriller type direction, kind of away from like what Primal is, Pulp Fiction-y type stories, to more grounded-ish sci-fi with like horror elements, because I feel like that would work perfectly. The horror elements in Primal are some of like the best moments in that show because it's so intense. You feel the fear in those characters and you're kind of like worried that something might happen to them in that episode, and it's just brilliant. It's brilliant, and I hope he does something like that if it is to continue.
Totally.
There's a tremendous amount of possibility with sending it on some planet, space.
Yeah.
The final frontier. Sorry. Not sorry.
So I do wonder, well, you could certainly still make it so it's fairly limited on dialogue. I mean, for goodness sake, Scavengers is exactly that. Barely any dialogue sci-fi. So, yeah. Good. I could see that. I would like that. Though it would kind of feel like sci-fi is definitely his wheelhouse. He's done a lot of sci-fi.
Yep.
But still, there's so much more he could explore.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But that is just a possibility. I'm sure he has an idea planned out and he'll run with that idea.
I do feel like that the Fang story is ended. I mean, the only way I could see this being revisited is if there is an episode that is somehow like randomly during the time when they were just the two of them together or the three of them together, you know, like revisiting that. But I don't think anything post what that episode 10 had is really like worth exploring. I mean, sure, one could say like, let's see Little Spirit, but it's not like a need. I don't feel like as a fan I need to see that story, you know. I just want to see what is in that brain of his. Like, what else are you going to come up with to blow our minds?
Yeah.
Honestly,
I want to see him continue to challenge himself and push the limits of what he can do in animation.
You were saying, Sam?
As much as I love Spear, Fang, and Mira, that story's over with. It's concluded.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel like he ended it pretty well, and if it doesn't get renewed, I mean, that's a perfect ending. It's just, it's a nice little bow. It's tied up. I do have some lingering questions, specifically with what episode 5 was. In fact, I wouldn't mind them actually exploring more of.
Well, he did at least confirm that does not take place in the past. Primal is taking place in the past.
Yeah, absolutely not in the future.
It's just pulp.
Just the manga material.
It's not going to be historically accurate. The past.
No. That's okay though. We're here for the ride.
Yep.
I think it works in the sense that like the first island in the first season, it seemed like that was like the land of the lost.
Yeah.
And as they journeyed further, they found more and more civilizations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to go with that.
What a fun world though. There was so many things. We had like zombies, we had witches, we had like civilized chimpanzees. We had like all kinds of things in this world.
The ape men.
Yeah. The ape men, man, that was probably at that point the scariest thing we had seen. And then all of a sudden you see like enemies with weapons and like a new challenge. Oh, we had flying like pterodactyls they had to fight. There was everything. It was great. What a journey. What a crazy world. And I love that he just was like, fuck it, I'm going to take anything I want and throw it up against these two and see how they deal with it. And I was along for the ride. I was like, yes, let's do it. Let's go, Spear. Let's go, Fang. We can do this. We can take them on. We're going to survive.
Yo, shout outs to Adult Swim for greening this production because it is risky to greenlit anything that is a new IP, especially something that is as artsy as Primal is. Because executive only likes to see numbers and money. Yeah. So it's like shout outs to the team at Adult Swim who are like, we respect you enough to make your art. Here you go. Here's a bag of money. Do what you want. Create your little art project, and we'll promote it for you. And that's just incredible.
Totally.
I don't see that these days. Risk is a huge problem in the film and television industry where we're seeing more and more reboots. But Primal is Gendy's passion project, in my opinion, where he was just like, this is an idea I had for a long time, and I want to bring it to the full fruition. And Adult Swim is giving me that power to do it, and that's incredible.
Yeah, original content. Absolutely. There's nothing like it on television, so.
There will never be anything like Primal again on television. I just don't think there ever will be.
That is a safe bet.
This was good. I feel like that's a podcast sketch. What do you think?
For sure. My one rating thought is, thank you, Adult Swim, for coming to your senses and playing it on Toonami.
Yes.
Thank
you, Adult Swim. Thank you, Adult Swim. We really appreciate you showing this on Toonami. Hey, and I think it was a good compromise they came to. They showed it on Thursday as a premiere, and then they showed it as part of Toonami. and it still got fairly. They both got like varying ratings, but pretty high ratings, right?
Yeah, I mean Saturday ratings actually beat the Thursday ratings for a lot of weeks. So a lot of people were watching on
six times out of 10.
Yeah.
And who's to say if they were the same audience or not? It may have been a different audience. It may have been the same. There may have been just some crossover. So, that actually adds another level to it, too.
I would assume, like, sorry, Sketch.
Yeah, what were you saying, Sam?
If I were to guess, like, I would assume Toonami viewers are more than likely going to tune in for something like Primal, comparatively to the regular Adult Swim audience who, on a Thursday night, are just like, where are the Rick and Morty reruns? Where's Family Guy? Where's that stuff? Like, that's the typical, like, normal viewership. Maybe there's some overlap between the two. I don't see the data. I don't know the data. But that's just an assumption from what I can gather, considering Toonami viewers seem to really enjoy it, and that seems to be where it gained most of its audience. That and HBO Max, I think it did very well on that service.
Yeah, I think the turnout in terms of ratings, I don't think was like that significantly far apart, but it did feel more kind of in tone with the Toonami lineup and the viewers of Toonami than it does on the regular Adult Swim schedule next to the rest of the Adult Swim lineup. And certainly, it's a better pairing with the Toonami programming than back in like 2020 when Primal premieres were airing on the same night as Eric Andre's show at Dream Corp premieres.
Yeah, wasn't the best.
Not super tonally connected there to go from Primal to Eric Andre.
Yeah, it didn't really work out there.
You were to say something else, Sketch?
No, I was just saying that I hope that it did well on HBO Max because that is an important metric now.
And
it's now on Roku. You can watch it on Roku if you missed
you can
any
watch
of it.
on the Roku channel in the Adult Swim section.
Yeah.
It also curiously has a bunch of Viz anime in it.
Hey,
on the Adult Swim section?
Yeah, in the Adult Swim section. They also have other things that definitely didn't air on Adult Swim, like Blazing Saddles.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That is an excellent film. If you haven't seen it, you must watch.
It is very funny.
It is very funny.
Yeah, so you certainly think, I mean, what? How can one even criticize Primal? It's so dang good.
I think
nothing
at the
is
beginning,
perfect.
Yeah.
Nothing is perfect.
Sorry, Sketch. Like, I think for me, like, there is no such thing as a perfect anything. But if I'm looking at it as a whole, for the 2 seasons that I've seen of Primal, it is Genndy Tartakovsky's masterpiece. It takes all the years that he has worked in the animation industry, and he has just perfected it to an exact T. It blows my mind how amazing it is, just how engaged I was. Because normally whenever I watch television, I usually have my phone out, I'm doing other things, or I'm playing a game in the background. But with Primal, I was engaged from beginning to end. No phone, no nothing. I was just watching my television, wanting to know what happens in the episode. And that's how you know it's a great series. It keeps your attention. It's paced perfectly. Every little beat. It's just wonderful. It's a wonderful series.
Yeah, and
I
really didn't
episode, search for it and watch it. It's just watch it. It's great. You will love it.
And if you go back to like the first episode and you watch it, you kind of have this what the fuck moment. Like, what am I watching? What is this? It's just sheer violence, and you're a little taken aback. But when you get past that initial shock, and you actually give yourself a moment to absorb, there's a story there, and there's 2 characters here that are in the process of bonding in an unlikely cooperative relationship, then suddenly you're really drawn in. Because honestly, I could not have it speaks not just to the maturity of Tartakovsky and where he is and his creative process, but also to the viewers, because in my classic Samurai Jack days, I could not have watched this and enjoyed this because I would have been put off by the violence. But I'm at a stage where I can appreciate beyond that and what was going on in this, through this medium, like in the storytelling, through the animation style, through like the expressiveness without the sound, everything. I wouldn't have been able to appreciate it because I would have been put off by the violence, but I can now. So to anyone who didn't finish the series, please go back. It is so worth it, and you'll be drawn in very quickly if you just start off, watch the first 3 episodes, and you don't even. I'm not even sure this is like totally bingeable. I feel like only when they have an arc it's bingeable, but it's definitely something like you can watch 1 or 2 every other day or every day and get into it. So go back, watch it, tell us what you think. We'd love to hear it, unless you say it's crap, and then I'm not interested. Just kidding. I can't imagine anyone saying that.
Yeah, Primal, beyond just the sheer action of it all, the intensity of it all, like what makes it so strong is that at its core, like every episode is centered around 2 really strongly defined characters and a very emotionally rich and interesting story, very emotionally mature stories that really do sit with you. That we definitely saw here in the second season, but also in the first season we had several like really kind of interesting and like poignant examples. Like I always think about the episode with like the witches and like the one witch who ends up sympathizing with Spirit Fang because of her own like sense of loss that she had with her daughter. And like you have like some really powerful stories like that, the kind of tragic story of like the dinosaur that gets zombified and just ends up like chasing Spirit Fang until it like just burns up in the lava. And yeah, it's just episode after episode are just like these fantastic story concepts that like are not just like about like action pieces, but also exploring kind of broader like emotional and thematic kind of ideas that it's rarely thoughtfully done and just so powerfully done and beautifully done. Like this is such a gorgeous show, and how it's animated, how it's designed. So it is truly like a masterpiece of animated storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what more needs to be said?
No.
Definitely check it out. If you don't have HBO Max, you can get the first season on Blu-ray, which I actually would highly recommend. If you want to keep it long term, because you never know with this Warner Brothers Discovery nonsense.
Yeah, nothing is safe, even success.
Sigh.
So, yeah.
Sigh.
Heavy sigh.
Final Space was written off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, show its 3 seasons it got written off despite being a hit internationally, and it's like just such an infuriating thing. But again, like this new regime.
Do something about ownership of IPs in the US.
Yeah, at least a way for the creators.
All the power.
Yeah. Creators need a way to be able to reclaim their stories if the companies don't want to have anything to do with it anymore, rather than them being able to write it off and no one being able to do anything with it ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Joining many of the greats like XLR.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna wait for his next project though. Like, I'm kind of eager now. What else you got for me, man? Give me more.
He has,
he has.
Warriors Eternal. That
he said
that Entertainment Weekly article, he said it's either going to launch later this year or early next year.
Yeah.
I'm placing
wrong.
Because they're premiering the first episode at New York Comic Con. So I think if they're first episode, it's probably nearby. Because why air it right now if it's just going to be early 2023? I think November.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they announced the release date for Unicorn at NYCC.
Yeah, same. And also, like, I also kind of expect at that panel, Gendy kind of announces his next project outside of like his movie with Sony, but that's on Sony's term, or is it New Line? I don't know who's distributing it
New
at
Line.
the moment.
That one's New Line, yeah.
Yeah, so
I don't know how much of these accolades that we give him and the other people involved in this project get through, but I really hope at some point all of this is able to be conveyed, like that us as fans, how much we appreciate and what we think of what this project and how it impacted us. Like I don't know, I just think there's such a separation sometimes between the artist and their work and the fans that watch it, but like I really hope that the message comes through, how we all loved it and how fantastic we thought it was, and all the subtleties that are written into the show, the little things here and there, the details, the emotions, all of that we're listening, we're picking up on that, and we appreciate all of it. I just hope that comes through. And I know he's never going to listen to this, but if you are, we appreciate you, man. Thank you, Gendy Tartakovsky. We love you.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for entertaining us with just amazing stories and shows for 25 years now, from Dexter's to Primal and stuff beyond. It's incredible how much he's been
from what I've read about
grown up on his stuff.
From what I've read about Unicorn Warriors Eternal, like, I'm excited for it. It sounds awesome. So whatever you're up to next, Mr. Tartakovsky, I greatly look forward to your next work. I know it'll be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you have thoughts on Primal, you can email us at podcast@ToonamiFaithful.com. You can also email us about any other programming on Toonami or other things going on with the industry, because, oh boy, there are so many things.
That's a topic for another podcast.
Yes. Or, if not multiple podcasts. You can follow us on Facebook.com/Toonami Faithful Podcast and on Twitter @Toonami Podcast. You can listen to the podcast on just about everything, including iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, and Amazon. You can find every episode of the podcast to stream online at SoundCloud.com/Toonami Faithful Podcast. And you can get the latest news by following @Toonami News on Twitter, and read the news, views, and reviews on ToonamiFaithful.com. All right, Sam, tell them where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at SZUniverse, and you can also follow my work over at Toonami Squad. I am still writing something, and, well, hopefully I'll have it done soon.
All right. And Lum, where can they find you?
You can find me as LumRanmaYasha on Twitter and other places like Letterboxd and Animation Revelation and Analytics. Wherever there's a LumRanmaYasha, you can find me there under that name. You can read my reviews and other written pieces over on mangaartist.com, and that's also where you can find the podcast I do, the Manga Artist Podcast, a podcast where we talk about manga as both a medium and as an industry, covering a lot of great series and reviewing new series that come out, and interviewing people in the industry covering news. And you can find that on pretty much every podcast platform you can think of: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and whatnot. And you can follow us on Twitter at @manga_mavericks, and you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/manga-mavericks. And I also do a show focused on Yurusei Yatsura, the classics sci-fi rom-com series from Go Takahashi, who Toonami fans will know as Yatsura to Yasha. And that's also on mangaartist.com. And you can also listen to that on every podcast platform you can think of, as well as Crossroads episodes in the Manga Arts feed. And yeah, we're going to have a lot to talk about on that show with the new anime coming up pretty soon here. So I'm very, very excited for that. And if you like the art I make, like the thumbnails I make for my podcast, or the animation illustrations I make in general, you can find that stuff on my Instagram @SthatArtWorks.
That is a hard act to follow, man. Come on. What am I supposed to do after that? Jesus. I am a one-trick cat, so currently you can read editorials that I write for ToonamiFaithful.com on the website, and you can follow me at Happy Kuro Kitty, where I generally try to keep things positive and upbeat and tweet lots of cat things, artwork, and a lot of Toonami related content. So if you're looking for more positivity on your feed in a time where maybe the internet isn't so positive, definitely follow me. I'll try to keep you on track with that. Sketch, where can they find you?
You can always find me on Twitter at Sketch1984. But thank you all for listening each and every week about a podcast. We hope you enjoyed this conversation and others. And we also welcome your feedback if you want to give it. And Paul was saying that he would really like to start doing more interviews, so if you get some feedback on that front, that would be good, though there are some people that we have in mind. More on that as it develops. But until next time, thank you for listening, and we're punching out.
Peace.
Peace.
And there you have it.